how we wish, Mike, we could leave the office early, hey? You know,
That's
but
really a thing. That's one of those
apparently
internet
it
memes.
is. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. You
wow.
know, leave the office early day. You think it would be on a Friday or something, but I guess it's done by the day of
Yeah,
the year, month rather than day of the week. But there we go. There we go.
a little
Yeah.
antiquated, a little out of touch with what's going on in our workplace world these days. But
It
I'll take
does.
it.
It
Okay.
does. It does.
How are you today, Steve? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, Mike. Happy Tuesday. I'm good. I'm good.
Is there a
Excited.
taco in your future? Is it Taco Tuesday for Steve and Todd?
No, no taco. No taco for me. I'd love a taco.
No?
There's so many foods I'd love to get to. So many places I want to go eat. It's like no, now you've just put this in my head. My mouth starts salivating, Mike. I don't
You
know what
have
you've
to
done to it.
choose. Yeah, you have to choose. This is one of the this or that, either or
Ah,
questions we put in the survey a couple weeks ago. Lifetime of pizza or tacos? If you had to choose a comfort food,
mm, mm.
only could choose one.
I'd probably go with taco because I think in taco you've probably got a little bit more variety, and I think pizza's a lot of bread, right? So I'd probably go
Keep
with a
those carbs in
taco.
check, right?
Try and keep
Right.
those carbs in check, you know.
You know what else Tuesday, June 2nd is? Don't just seem to me to switch away from food. I could talk about food all day, but today's haircut day, Steve. This is the
Haircut
last
day.
time you'll
Oh
see this.
wow,
This is
wow!
going away, my friend.
This is a big
One
moment.
final look.
We should we should
One
le- we should get a picture of that, Mike. I gotta
screenshot
get a
that.
picture, a screenshot. Yeah, let me do something about that because I think we need to sort of memorialize something here, you know. And
Look at my
wow,
headbanger here.
wow, that's impressive, man.
So this is 3 months of growth. This is 3 months of no weed whacking. This is like the lawn is out of control. The landscaper is taking the day off or the year off. But the essential businesses, the hair salons in the DC area have reopened as of yesterday. So I have an appointment today, and we'll see how it goes. You'll see if there's a difference tomorrow if you notice it. But
Yeah, no, no,
it's fully
I,
documented, I think.
no, I'll definitely keep a wee eye out for that, as will our audience with bated breath. So it should be exciting, Mike. I look forward to seeing that tomorrow. Actually, I tell a lie. I probably won't because usually I enjoy it before we get on the air, where you're sitting, you're
Yes.
grooming, you're very conscious of it. I enjoy those moments
Well,
more.
we usually get the shower out of the shower wet look where you can't really quite tell how long it is, but
There
it's
you
it's
go.
there.
There you go.
It's got the 70s 80s vibe, which is my music choice and my favorite decade, the 80s.
Sure
So,
is,
but
Mike. Sure is.
but you've seen the behind the scenes for sure.
I
Too
certainly
much of
have.
me. Too much about
Well,
me.
maybe Mike. Maybe I don't think we can get too much of Mike. So yeah. So if you're first time to the channel, please do drop in comments for us.
Never
Yes,
come
this
back.
is this is my ordinary compact. Yeah, they probably wouldn't, but in essence, this is as we have these chats. What we kind of want to do is get audience participation. If there's stuff that you want to contribute, please feel free to do so. If you're watching afterwards, drop a comment, drop a like, help promote the channel. We're here trying to provide a service. It's just Mike, as we often say, Mike. There's two dudes just chatting in the morning, catching up with each other, and sometimes we talk about workplace, and sometimes we just talk absolute rubbish. But the
We
audience
are
can
two
decide.
we are two enthusiasts, Steve. I heard that
Two.
confirmed. That term
Oh,
is
really?
perfect for us.
Good.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast, and the guy said was trying to be a writer in his younger career, and he submitted an article for publication, and the editor wrote back and said, "You really shouldn't call yourself a writer. Maybe you should call yourself a writing enthusiast."
Mm, mm.
So we talk about workplace, and we talk to a lot of workplace experts and
Yeah.
people who really know about the industry. So we're not really experts ourselves. We're just workplace enthusiasts.
There you go. I love it. Well, I do love it. I was actually going to defend myself there, but I thought, something. There's no point. There's just no point.
No, you are. You are my expert. You are my
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
an
no.
enthusiast. I'm the
No.
amateur here. You're the pro.
Come on. But talking of conversations we just had, I just published this morning an interview I did with Andrew Mawson. Great. So, and what I'm loving about, and I don't know what your experience is, Mike. The more you interview people, when you get to know people, they sort of soften up a little bit, and they're sort of more prepared to open up and chat more. And Andrew, in this video, I asked him if he'd be open to sharing his thoughts about leadership style, how he created Advanced Workplace Associates, and sort of what his ethos was and how he did it. And
Yeah.
he sort of sat back and went, I've never done that before. But I guess maybe I need to do it. And obviously in this environment, there are many organizations who are looking at how do we sort of start with a blank piece of paper. If we were to going to do that today, how would we create an organization? How would we operate? How would we recruit talent? Where would we put our people? And so he very openly and very candidly shared his philosophy, his leadership style, and you can see how much actually he trusts his employees, how much he empowers his employees, and he recruits them, and sort of he's there almost as a support guide. And obviously he interacts with his clients as well, but in essence he references the highly skilled people he's recruited, but he's also mentioned the talent that's required to be able to operate efficiently and effectively within this environment, because in essence he's got into the senior leaders within organizations and sort of help guiding. So it's a great conversation. Very grateful to Andrew as always for opening up and being prepared to share. So do go check out that video.
I certainly will. That's exactly the kind of leadership we're talking about needing in today's world, isn't it? I've heard many of my guests share that it's the times in which we live, the old, style of leadership, top down, I know it all and you are going to follow my direction verbatim. It just doesn't work in this very complicated world. And certainly when we're dealing with pandemics and civil unrest and all types of just difficult situations, they're complicated problems and there's really no playbook for them. I guess Rex Miller is who I'm thinking of, is my guest on the podcast this morning, where we recounted a conversation we had on a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and it was about these wicked problems of trying to deal with the pandemic, balancing the public health with the economic issues. Once you try to lead one way, there's just other unintended consequences and problems that arise. So it's a true leader is more of a guide, he said. He was likening it to something I could relate to, the hero's quest, the Star Wars or the Lord of the Rings, the quest for the ring. A leader is not someone who has all the answers. A leader is not someone who is saying, follow me, I know exactly where to go. A leader is someone who is casting a vision and guiding the people they're leading on this journey. That's a long journey that we don't know what's going to come up next, and relying on the expertise of those around them and saying, we need a collective effort here, and what's your opinion, and let's just get there together on this journey. So it's not the old I got all the answers and I'm impervious to any of these challenges. That's the type of leadership that just doesn't fly these days. So that's great. I'm going to watch Andrew's video.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I'll go and listen to your podcast then. There you go. We'll do that. At least
cheers.
we'll both have a view. That's great.
One view. That's all I need.
That's great. But in essence, what you're saying, actually just taking that a little bit, and I did come across an article the other day that made me giggle, and it did make me click on it because of the headline, and it was just referencing what you did. The helicopter leader, the one that just hovers and watches all the time. Sneaks up and all of a sudden it's just there, just overseeing. And I have to imagine in this environment that must be a really tough, stressful thing for them, because it's just hard to know what you're able to do when hovering and sort of, but I think we've talked before at length about these days is probably more the empathetic manager who will be more successful given the sort of times that we're going through. But there's one thing I did want to touch on today, and I did put it as the title, and I think it's an interesting conversation, Mike. I think it's an important one because, when we look around the world, what we've gone through with COVID-19, what's actually going on in the streets of the USA today, it's builds stress. Businesses, who have been fighting to stay in business, and then their business is getting destroyed. But then also there are organizations who are looking to open up offices because some of their employees want to get back to the office. Their home environment may not be suitable for being productive and sort of working in an efficient way, an effective way. So I came across this, and it was, is it safer to remain silent about workplace stress? And that was the question. I'm going to pull up the result. It was part of a poll question that was issued. And the question was simply, at my company, it is safer to remain silent about workplace stress. Do you agree or do you disagree? And 69% said yes.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's not encouraging, Steve.
It's not, right? And
No, that's again. What do you think's behind that?
I think most of the time people feel, and I feel people feel this. You're under stress, right? So whenever you're stressed, you probably have other emotions that impact your ability to think logically and think straight. So under stress, we free thoughts don't flow. We have struggles to think beyond what's right in front of us. And
Yeah.
I suspect because I think about the times that I am under stress, right? Those are issues that I feel I have. I can't think
Oh, sure.
freely. I can't see
Yeah.
beyond what's right in front of me, right? And
Same here.
therefore,
Yeah.
if I communicate this to some people, do I sound, or will I be persecuted for mentioning this? Do I feel that I'm doing myself a disadvantage, that my manager or my leaders or my colleagues will think less of me? And the next
Hmm.
time the big project comes along, it's like, well, no, Steve can't do that because Steve struggled with this last time. He's got enough, or we can't do anything, right? And it's sort of, we hold back. It's held back from us. So it's almost like a perseverance, as a show of arms that we battle through it, even though I'm sure people around us can see it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what are your
Yeah, I
thoughts?
guess no. I think you're right. I think I was initially my initial thought when you told me about the survey question, and you didn't prepare me for this in
I
advance, so I
never
appreciate
do. I
that.
never
But
do.
that's what makes this great. I was like, oh, that's a culture problem. That's leadership not giving people permission to express themselves and share their stress. But I think you're right. I think it's more the opposite. It's the individual. It's we as human beings are reluctant to be vulnerable and be transparent about those things because it shows weakness. Even if we are given all the signals that say, hey, we don't judge you here. If you need the day off or you need time to get away, or under a stress or a crisis in your personal life, this is all pre-pandemic. Right now, those cultures existed, but still we would be hesitant to want to put ourselves out there as someone who is not capable of handling whatever situation, like for fear of negative ramifications on our careers or the ability to contribute later. So you're right; it's coming from us as humans, and that's something I see in every facet of existence. Raising children and being with in relationship and looking at others and their the protective walls go up and there's something going on, and you do it yourself. Inside you're dealing with something else, but you deflect or you start putting up those again, I guess, protective barriers to try to not be vulnerable with people. And put yourself now in this scenario, put us all in this scenario of quarantine for 3 months and this living with COVID-19 and the stress of the fact that our society is struggling and there are really hurting people everywhere, and it's a crisis. We're one crisis to the next, and boy, are you going to get on a soapbox and share that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm as confused about this as anyone.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy, and that's where we need that leader like Andrew Mawson to figure this out, or to guide us, as Rex Miller says, guide us on this journey. Someone who can say, I know the way. I don't know all the answers, but I know the direction, and cast that vision. Boy, wasn't that one of the things I said at the very beginning of this pandemic? We need someone to cast a vision. Now, for me, I was talking about the vision of getting through the virus, getting to the end of it, and what it would look like. And now we know we're in this for the long term. COVID may be with us forever, even post-vaccine. So let's begin to build our society, our workplaces, and our lives around knowing that it's out there. And you're seeing that here and there. Some organizations and individuals are doing a great job of casting a vision and sharing. But when something about our culture today, and this certainly must reflect in all of us, that we are all aware, I certainly am, that if you're exploring ideas and you express something that you may not quite 100% know whether you believe it fully or not, you're just exploring, you want to have a nuanced dialogue about it, That's not tolerated today. In our black and white polarized society, if you say one thing regarding any of these issues out there, you'll be labeled and thrown into a category. And then if it doesn't agree with the social media mob
Yeah.
mentality, you could
Yeah.
be really in a hard place. So I see why everybody's protective.
Yeah, no, no, I can. But the other thing that sort of, and I have to remind myself of this when I get into these moments. I also then have to flip over because whenever somebody comes to me and tells me they're stressed, or somebody who's on the team, be it somebody who works, I'm their manager or whatever, it's more of how do I react in that situation, and are those traits that I have? Now, I understand everyone's different, but in essence, what I want to do in those moments is do what I can to help and provide support and bring resources and help everybody, because it's about the collective, right? It's not about an individual. And I always want to give people the opportunity to feel that they can come forward, step forward, and then we share the load, and we can sort of get through it together. So there is a conflict as I speak about this and I go through this process when I am under stress and when I am trying to deliver something. I almost have to have there's the two little voices on my shoulder as I sort of
Yeah.
battle this through. So I think it's really important that have those conversations with your manager in times of not stress, right? At times when you may feel emotionally okay and you have that sort of one-on-one time to sort of talk about past moments where you did feel stress. And what you'll probably find is the manager knew you were, but wanted to wait for you to come and actually talk, and actually just sort of work through this and then sort of come up with a strategy in the future of how you deal with this. And this survey response, or the answer that we just put up, is attached to an article, and the article does go on to explain 3 ways that you actually can help employees, and organizations can help all their employees sort of work through this. And obviously you mentioned it, open communication, right? So have an open communication with it, that it is, we are all going through this, and really relay that there is support for you, and feel free to come forward and discuss this. Provide flexible work options. So as we go through today, yes, there are very little flexible work options because a lot of people are at home, but in essence, during time as we sort of move through these phases of reopening, is the office the place for you to go that you need to sort of get the release of that because that makes you feel less stress? Is it to remain home? Is it to go somewhere else that's not the office or isn't home? What are the various options that organizations can provide for employees to make them feel that little bit more secure, safe, less stressful? And then the last thing is invest in the right support. There are many organizations out there who provide these resources. There are a lot of people who are setting up and providing services for free for those to chat to, one-on-one coaching with people who may feel stressed, who maybe don't feel that they can chat with their organization, their manager, their colleagues, whatever that is. But there are other people there who are designed, specialist, trained to actually help people through this, through these stressful moments. But I think it's a really important subject to talk about, and
Yeah.
and I know I've been through it. I'm sure you've been through it, and I'm sure everybody's been through it. So it's taboo, but at the same time, we all go through it, and we go through it, and it alters daily, right? It alters daily. It all depends on the workload and what the deliverables are.
Yeah. Do you think there's anybody who's not stressed to
No,
some level at this
no,
point? I
no,
think we're all
no.
pretty much in it together at this point. That's kind of like the difference between pre-pandemic work from home policies and some of the questions we've explored here around, do you feel like you're left out, or do you feel like you're part of the team, or do you feel
Hmm.
like you're being looked down upon because you don't come in or you do come in? That we were concerned with, and I continue to be concerned with, when the offices do reopen and it truly becomes a choice, that if people choose not to come in for that meeting or not to be part of that project team's gathering in person, will those differences cause some tension, or will there be pressure to do things that you maybe don't feel comfortable or you're too vulnerable to do, and especially under the weight of the virus? It's something we're going to have to explore. But stress, we all have it. We all know we do. I guess it's just, those are good points. Communicating and being open about the fact that it's okay to feel that way, and then getting to the root cause of it, right? Certainly we know there's this weight of all that we've discussed on us right now in this world we're living in today. But Rex dug deeper and said, why is stress what's the root cause of the stress? And then what are the consequences of that stress? We know that stress leads to health ramifications, physical and mental health fallout. And he talked about this vicious cycle of, the reason we're eating poorly, or the reason we're, looking for comfort in other things, whether it be too much binge watching Netflix, or too much, alcohol, or too much something that is not healthy, not good for your body, is because we're trying to manage that stress. And the way to manage the stress better in a healthier way is to get your rest. The things that you've helped me get through when I've had a bad day and bad mental health day, hitting that digital wall. It's how are you sleeping, Mike? Well, it's because the Zoom meetings and all the weight of things caught up with me, and lack of sleep is probably the number one thing behind that. So, the cycle that Rex described is that by doing all those bad habits, you get to a point where you can't sleep properly because your body's not able to fully recover through a good night's sleep. So then you begin the cycle again the next day. You drink your coffee, and then you get your jelly donuts for a sugar rush, and you crash, and it's this up and down. It's this nonstop cycle, and then that leads to this crazy thing where you never conquer the root cause of the stress, and it just builds and builds. And I think that's pretty descriptive of what's going on in our society. And then it gets pent up, and then something else breaks, and the pot boils over. It's pretty scary.
No, it is, and it's who knew that you were going to post that podcast today. Just nicely fits in, and so if anyone has concerns about this, please do go listen to that, and do listen to Andrew Mawson as well, who talks about how to structure that. But it also reminds me, stress. Remember we talked about the balance of happiness and stress. So if somebody is concerned about stress at the moment, put a measure on that. Is 1 through 10, because stress at 2 or 3 isn't necessarily a good thing for people who are driven and excited and motivated and pushing forward, because most people who are driven and forward won't actually stress around that 5-6 number, because it's pushing people forward, but actually they feel they're in control. And usually when they're at 5 or 6, happiness on a scale of 1 to 10 is usually around the same level. The problem comes whenever that stress level gets up to a 6 or 7 and 8 and 9, that happiness drops. And when we're out of sync that way, that's when things do really spiral. There are those people who want to live at the 7-8 stress, and that's when they're happiest, right? But that's not everybody. So that sort of swings. So as you think about it, and somebody's watching, just take a measure of today. How stressed am I, and how happy am I? And as you go through these different things, just take a moment to sort of measure those. And then what you just said, that Rex said, take a step back. What is the root cause? Look at what you're eating, look at the exercise, look at the sleep. And whenever your happiness is high, have a look and go, what did I do the day before? What did I eat? Did I exercise? How did I sleep? What did I do? And then how can I replicate that each day going forward, so that you give yourself every opportunity to actually be successful and manage stress as each day unfolds thereafter. I say all this. I got to do this myself every day. I got to do this all the time.
Do you feel like you're pretty in tune with what your levels are? Because I think that's my problem, is I don't know, or I often don't recognize that behavior A or reaction to something over here is actually related to something yesterday or even a month ago, especially when talking about relationships and communicating. I mentioned, pretty transparent here. I hope my wife doesn't watch this, but when we have these disagreements about things, it's often not that thing that is bothering her or me. Right. It's this accumulation of things that have happened over weeks or even years. And then the stress brings it out in some form that's just not conducive or not compatible. So that those scales are good to think about. And I know that we got to find the right level of managing our happiness and our stress, but also be aware, folks, that it could be something totally, different from what you're dealing with in the moment, what you're stressed about, or you don't even know you're stressed about something, or maybe it's been built up over time. So to take a moment, step back, and usually it's after a good night's sleep or after you're out of the heat of the moment, right? The crisis situation that we are, and we have been living in a crisis for months now, and continue to. And now there's a new crisis on top of it with the protests and the rioting, and it's just so sad that who breaks the cycle? How do we get out of this cycle, this spiraling?
Yeah.
And boy, it's going to be tough.
And I want to go back to what you said, because you made a really important point, I feel, in it, and it's sort of triggered in my head at the times when I take note of these things. It's whenever you take a step back and you sit down and you relax and you do think back, you got to give yourself those moments to actually do that, right? And that's only then can you actually really sit back and think, well, why did this happen? How do I feel about that? And meditation is one of the best forms, because you allow your body to really relax, and all of a sudden you realize, all of a sudden you get these tense parts of your body, and your knee hurts or whatever it is. Your mind is racing. What comes to your mind? Okay, what is that? Take a moment to sort of run through these things, and then afterwards write it down. What were the thoughts that came through? I know whenever I'm under huge stress and it is really impacting my sleep, keeping a pen and a piece of paper beside my bed, so that whenever something pops into my head that's causing me to either come awake or stay awake, just the whole process of writing it down is a signal to my brain, okay, we got that. We can let that one go for now. We're going to come back to it because it's written down. We can think about that in the morning. And I just find it's a really simple thing, but it really helps me. I don't know if it's
Jerry Seinfeld's joke writing technique.
Oh, yeah?
He's got that pen and paper by the bedside. When a joke comes to him in the middle of the night, you make sure he writes it down so he doesn't forget it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some good things there. We should probably end on this. This is a really great way to think about it. It could be meditation, it could be prayer.
Yep.
But my dad, I always used to make fun of my dad because he has something called his thinking chair. And as a younger person, looking at my dad going to his thinking chair, where he would sit there for hours on a Saturday, no social media, obviously, no TV, no electronic disruptions of any kind, even no music. I like to listen to music to relax, but even if you just shut it all off and have a place where you can sit and just think, or just let your mind relax. And I've been starting to do that, Steve. I've got this little, old folding chair that sits out in my garage, and I open the door and I look out, and it's a busy, it's not a busy street, but it's certainly not like looking over an ocean or looking over some beautiful resort, but there's some trees in the breeze, and in a beautiful day you'll hear the birds chirping, and it just give myself a few minutes to just not have my phone and not be even listening to my earbuds, listening to just the sounds of nature, and let my mind drift and think. So now I've become my dad. I've become the old guy with the thinking chair. So I recommend a thinking chair for everyone.
There you go.
The sooner you start, the better you're off you'll be.
I love it. That's great advice, Mike. So let's wrap it up there. Thank you for everything you today, Mike. I appreciate you having a chat with us, and great to chat with you as always. And we'll chat tomorrow. Take care, folks. Thanks, man. You too.